Are you tired of always doubting yourself? Why bother shooting my shot with the girl I like because she's probably going to say no anyways? Why bother going to the gym when I'm just going to look like an idiot either way? And why bother improving my life as a whole when I screw up absolutely everything I do despite the fact that I try my hardest? Why bother wasting that time? This mindset straight up kills you. I know it does because it's the same exact mindset that I had for most of my life and it nearly brought me to that point. But here's the thing. I wish I could tell myself much sooner that there was always a way out. Because when things felt utterly hopeless, it was hard to see any light outside of that tunnel, even though it was straight up right in front of me. Your self doubt will always do infinitely more damage to yourself than anybody else ever will, and the longer we shrink ourselves down into a little ball of anxiety, the harder it's going to be to break out of it. But what I want you to know is that you can break out of it, because today I'm going to talk about my experiences with my insecurities and how I eventually freed myself from them. Alrighty, so to get this started, let's talk a little bit about my background. I'm sure you've heard me talk about this a million times already, but for any new viewers out there, I'm just a dude in his early 20s who's had a pretty long history with battling against anxiety, up until relatively recently. Throughout most of my childhood, I've always been that kid who always just kind of kept to himself. I was always paralyzed with fear when it came to putting myself out there, and whether it was making new connections, getting into new relationships, or really just trying new things as a whole, the end result ultimately always proved to be the same. Crippling isolation and depression. When you feel like you can't do the one good thing that humans are supposed to be good at, literally fucking talking, it sets you back so far. In order to cope with my depression, I furthered my self-sabotaging behaviors, ate like shit to where I was obese and pre-diabetic, played video games nonstop instead of going outside, and always avoided any situation where I would potentially embarrass myself. But the thing was, living the way I did was embarrassing enough as it was, so the idea that I could escape it was inconceivable. There was no way I was going to be anything other than an obese loser whose only redeemable quality was the fact that I was kind of good at Call of Duty. As you can imagine, I was utterly miserable. At first, it was tolerable, but as the years went by and my confidence in myself continued to go down, the patterns I began to notice grew scarier and scarier by the day. Abusing myself became more frequent, I didn't care if I died, and I even looked forward to the idea sometimes because there was no light, plain and simple. I was at rock bottom with no escape. But here's the thing. As weird as it sounds, I don't know if there was a smidge of hope tucked in a little corner in the recesses of my mind, but there was a small desire to change. I thought to myself for just a moment what life would look like if I changed the things I hated about myself. My weight, my appearance, my social skills, and the fact that I had no hobbies. Maybe life did not have to be so miserable, and if I was already abusing myself and suffering from the negative patterns that ruled over me, then maybe I can endure the positive suffering to create a new me who could actually look himself in the mirror. Suffering was no stranger to me, so maybe I could figure out a way to use it to my advantage. And so, I did just that. Over the next few months, I began to shift my diet. I eventually went on to lose nearly 60 pounds, and after that point, I began to hit the gym for a few years. I packed on a ton of muscle at that point, and I began talking to strangers just for the sake of talking to them. Don't get me wrong, was I still an anxious ball of anxiety at times? Sure, but at least it was getting better. Eventually, my self-improvement journey led me to the point where I am now, in a wonderful relationship with a woman I love, confident in my abilities to achieve anything I set my mind to, living in a body I'm happy with, and ultimately hopeful for the future. When previously the thought of this future was ridiculous, I defied the expectations I had for myself, and I'm going to talk to you about how you can do the same exact thing so you can live the life you deserve to live. Alrighty, so to get this started, what is the first way we can begin to shift the odds into our favor? The answer is figuring out the root of your issue. The best way to win a battle is by knowing your enemy. So who is your enemy? For myself, my enemy was my massive fear of rejection. If I never try, I can never fail became my motto, and it was something that I lived by. I was terrified of being rejected every single day, terrified of looking like a loser for failing, and terrified of even putting myself in a situation where it was even a possibility. By my logic, I was protecting myself from that failure. But here's the thing, that protection becomes a prison for yourself. By not putting yourself out there in some capacity, you're not protecting shit. The only thing you're protecting is your ability to remain stagnant in your life. You're not actually protecting yourself at the end of the day. You're just preventing your growth. You can't build confidence if you keep running away from your pain, so stop protecting yourself. Once I came to that realization, I at least had a starting point. Did any of my main issues change? No, but at least I knew where I could start and what to begin doing. When I highlighted what I was scared of, rejection and failure, I now knew that I needed to begin to expose myself to it, so I could realize that maybe it wasn't so bad, because at the end of the day, it wasn't. So again, dig deep and truly find what you fear. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to bring up is exposure. This is probably one of the most important things you can do to legitimately make a difference. One of the biggest reasons we are hesitant to go outside of our comfort zones in the first place is due to fear of the unknown. For myself, like I said before, I was always terrified of rejection and failure. I didn't expose myself to it, and so my mind had to fill in the blanks of what it was really like, which made things 10 times worse to say the least. For example, I didn't want to go to the gym because I was afraid everybody would be judging me and that I'd look stupid as hell. But once I began to expose myself and actually went to the gym, the reality was that nobody gave a single fuck about what I was doing. They were all in their own worlds with their own workouts, doing their own thing, and the reality I created in my head was so much worse than the actual reality. And had I not exposed myself to doing something that made me uncomfortable, I would have never known that. When you put yourself out there and do shit that makes you uncomfortable, you'll start to realize that you are capable of actually making a change, and the ideas that you had about yourself in your head aren't actually accurate. Additionally, by exposing yourself to things that made me uncomfortable, I grew to be uncomfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable, which made it so much easier to actually do the shit that made me a better person. I learned that I was capable of so much more than I gave myself credit for, and that it was just my mind that held me back. So here's what I want you to do. Start small and do something that makes you uncomfortable. Just one thing. Say hi to a stranger. Go for a walk in a new area. Go to the gym for a few minutes. Just that one thing. And once you do that, realize that you actually did it, and then continue to build up from there. You'll notice that the things really aren't as bad as they may seem, and you'll feel at least a little more confident when it comes to tackling your problems head on. Alright, so do shit that makes me uncomfortable. What next? For me, this one's a little more personal since it's probably had the biggest impact on my self worth alone. Now, what was that? It was hitting the gym. Once you push past the initial discomfort, hitting the gym and having a routine for yourself is absolutely massive. There's a saying I'm sure you've heard already: you look good, you feel good. Let me tell you, it's 100% true. When you start working out and setting goals for yourself and reach them, it's an amazing feeling. Whether it's building up your strength, running at amazing paces, or noticing your body change for the better. When you set those goals for yourself and reach them, it proves that you're actually capable and shows that you're making progress at the end of the day. I can tell you, my confidence straight up skyrocketed when I lost those 60 pounds. I now have one less thing to be insecure of, and had something to be proud of. And I think that's a key to confidence. Having things to be proud of, and ultimately being proud of yourself for, and it's really just giving evidence to yourself that, hey, I really can do these things, and I'm not that much of a loser. The gym will always be a great vessel to achieve just that. Each time I hit a new bench PR, each time my mile time gets a few seconds faster, and each pound of muscle I pack on, the more confident I grow. And I can guarantee that it will be the same exact way for you as soon as you begin to entertain it. Alright, so before I get this wrapped up, I want to go ahead and talk about some bonus tips that helped me out quite a bit. I'm not saying that it will 100% work for you, but I felt like it made a pretty big difference in my life. So the first one I'm going to talk about is enrolling in a martial art of some sort, especially if you're interested in it. Let me tell you, knowing that I can handle myself in a fight and force myself to fight through uncomfortable situations give me a little bit of ease whenever I do something that makes me uncomfortable. What jujitsu did for me was force me to fight my problems head on. Whether it was sparring a higher belt who very obviously could kick my ass and having to fight through the pain, seeing my techniques get better and better by the day, and eventually submitting people who were much stronger, bigger, and aggressive than me. It proved to be a testament that I could overcome any uncomfortable situation and that I would be okay as long as I continued to fight through it. And that in of itself was invaluable for me. So hopefully it's the same for you. Now, the next small bonus tip I have is to make sure you look tight at the end of the day. Like I said before, if you look good, you feel good. So go ahead and create a grooming routine for yourself. Shave, shower regularly, get a nice haircut, dress nice, etc. Even if you think you look ugly as shit, guess what? At least you look a little better when you do all those things, and by turn, you will gain a little bit more confidence in yourself. When I began taking that sort of thing seriously, it honestly did me wonders. Knowing that I took care of myself and wore nice outfits continued to give me a reason to be confident, and in turn, I was less anxious. Other people began to notice as well, and I'd get hit on from time to time when previously I thought I was at most a 4 or 5 out of 10. Again, it proved that my mind anxieties weren't reality. But with all that out of the way, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I know that you have what it takes to grow that confidence within yourself. Whether it's by dressing nicer, tackling your problems head on, figuring out the root of your issues, or simply hitting the gym. By doing all these things, you'll begin to realize that you can become that person that you've always wanted to be. You just gotta trust yourself and the process. You got this, man. But anyways, I hope you have a great day, and if you got any questions or would like some more advice, feel free to leave a comment below, and I'll get to it as soon as I can. Until next time, take care.